Well, good evening and thanks for joining us here. Tonight, educators are calling attention to what they deem to be a calculator crutch in many classrooms. But as our Josh Maxwell discovered, some of these accommodations are actually built into some students' individual education plans, or IEP for short. Now, Josh is here in the studio now. And Josh, if you can, help us to understand what exactly is an IEP and how do students receive them?
Mike, an IEP is a personally tailored education plan with special accommodations, a calculator just being one example. Now, while students who have them tend to struggle with learning disabilities, experts I spoke with say that's not always the case. In fact, if a student shows a high need, they could get one as well. As the Corpus Christi Independent School District navigates a busy week of STAR testing, many students are no doubt prepping for their exams. A subject that seems to divide many is math.
That's what's missing, is going back to the basics.
C-Math is Easy co-founder Andrea Johnson talking about a key variable missing from many students' core education. However, she says the answer to that equation is easy to solve.
A lot of them did have the accommodations for the calculator.
Johnson has been an educator for decades, helping students in the classroom from the early 2000s to now. She says while students can have problems with comprehension due to learning disabilities, it can still have drawbacks.
If this student has accommodations, when did they have the opportunity to learn the multiplications?
Which begs the question, how young can a student receive an accommodation?
Well, most accommodations are given at first grade, second grade, third grade.
TEA doesn't even want us to introduce a calculator really to a student who just has trouble recalling facts until upper elementary, like 5th grade, going into middle school for 6th and 7th grade.
Under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, an IEP is typically tailored to students with learning disabilities. Jennifer Arizmendi, who is CCISD's Chief Officer for Special Education Programs and Services, says there are some nuances.
A student doesn't have to have a diagnosis of a disability in the area of math to need the accommodation.
3 News did obtain records from CCISD showing the number of students grades 6 through 12 who have calculator accommodations on their IEPs. Arizmendi says while those numbers average out, ever-changing curriculum makes the use of a calculator in classrooms unavoidable.
If we find over time, and even with intervention, the student is still struggling, then we want to support them because we don't want them getting any further behind than their peer who doesn't need a calculation aid or is not in special education.
Johnson says if left unchecked, students can experience significant setbacks down the road, especially when it's time for college.
Most of the students drop out because they don't have those math skills, because they weren't taken care of in the 3rd and 4th grade.
Now, Arizmendi says it is possible for a student to be taken off of an accommodation only after adequate proof is given. Now, that can include report cards and teacher feedback. She says IEP plans are typically looked at on an annual basis. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Josh.